Tonight, federal agents raided a Minneapolis fortress. Inside, enough fentanyl to kill every person in Minnesota twice.
4:17 a.m., Minneapolis, Minnesota. December cold gripped the city. Ice crystals coated every window in Kenwood, the neighborhood where millionaires sleep behind stone walls and iron gates. Federal agents had been circling for 11 months, watching, recording, building a case that would shake Minnesota to its foundation. What they discovered wasn't just drugs, it was infrastructure, a distribution empire disguised as immigrant success, a fortress built on corpses. This is the story of how trust becomes a weapon, how generosity masks genocide, and how silence protects the most dangerous criminals in America. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people. The names carried weight across Minneapolis. Bashir Hassan Osman, 48. His wife, Amina Khalif Yusuf, 45. Business owners, community pillars. Philanthropists whose donations funded youth programs, mosque renovations, and immigrant advocacy centers across the Twin Cities. Their company, Noor Global Trade, operated from a sleek downtown office tower. Import-export, textile, consumer goods shipped between East Africa and the American heartland. Revenue reports documented 87 million transactions or 8 years. Legitimate, respectable, celebrated. But DEA financial analysts saw something else. Wire transfers that didn't match shipping schedules, cash deposits without corresponding invoices, bank activity that spiked every 72 hours like clockwork. In March 2025, a cross-reference changed everything. Sinaloa cartel distribution channels, encrypted communications intercepted in Culiacan, Mexico, GPS coordinates that pinpointed Minneapolis addresses, and 2 names that appeared in both datasets, Bashir and Amina, not importing textiles, importing death. The investigation began with silence. No marked vehicles, no visible presence, just surveillance cameras positioned across 3 zip codes. Financial tracking software monitoring 47 different accounts. Phone intercepts recording every conversation. Investigators identified 23 properties tied to shell companies, storage facilities in Bloomington, luxury condos in downtown Minneapolis, a warehouse in St. Paul with steel doors and no signage, a suburban home in Edina registered to Amina's cousin, a townhouse in Shakopee under Bashir's brother-in-law's name. Every property had one thing in common: late-night traffic, vehicles arriving after midnight, staying less than 20 minutes, then disappearing into the darkness. Bank records revealed $14.7 million moved through accounts in 18 months. None of it reported, none of it taxed. Phone intercepts captured coded language that seemed innocent until you understood the pattern. The shipment from Nairobi cleared customs. The fabric samples are ready for pickup. Tell the tailors to prepare the new inventory. Fabric sample, tailors, inventory. Federal analysts ran the phrases through cartel intelligence databases. Perfect match. Sinaloa distribution code. Comment exposed if you want to see how deep this goes. In June 2025, a routine traffic stop in Moorhead, Minnesota, 240 miles northwest of Minneapolis, shattered the silence. State troopers pulled over a rental truck for a broken taillight. The driver was 24 years old, Somali American, nervous hands, rapid breathing, too nervous for a taillight. A K-9 unit alerted on the rear cargo area. Troopers opened the doors. Inside, beneath crates labeled clothing donations for refugees, they discovered vacuum-sealed bricks. White powder, compressed into 10-kilogram packages, 243 kilograms total. Fentanyl, enough to produce 121 million lethal doses. The driver's phone contained text messages with a contact saved as Uncle B, delivery schedules, drop locations, payment confirmations sent via encrypted messaging apps. Federal agents traced the phone number. It belonged to Bashir Hassan Osman. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system. By August, the DEA had mapped the entire network, 47 cities across 14 states, over 200 individuals connected to the supply chain, couriers, street dealers, warehouse operators, money launderers. At the center stood Bashir and Amina, command and control. Their Kenwood estate had been purchased with cash in 2019, $2.8 million, renovated twice, security cameras facing inward, steel-reinforced doors installed without permits, bulletproof windows that required special order from a European manufacturer. Neighbors noticed the guards rotating shifts, the delivery trucks arriving at 3 a.m., the fact that no one ever saw the couple leave during daylight, but no one questioned it, because successful immigrants protecting their wealth seemed reasonable in a city that celebrated diversity. Federal analysts discovered direct connections to a Sinaloa cartel lieutenant operating in Culiacan. Encrypted communications revealed bulk pricing negotiation, $2,300 per kilogram for orders over 500 kilos. Delivery schedules coordinated through intermediate stops in Phoenix, Arizona. Fentanyl precursor chemicals sourced from Shanghai were shipped to clandestine labs in Sinaloa, processed into powder, transported north through cartel-controlled tunnels near Nogales. From there, shipments moved to Phoenix Consolidation Point, then routed east through commercial trucking networks operated by front companies registered to Noor Global Trade. The system was elegant, professional, nearly invisible, and it was flooding the Midwest with poison on an industrial scale. Type yes if you're ready to see what happened next. Between January 2023 and November 2025, Minnesota recorded 1,847 fentanyl-related overdose deaths, a 340% increase from the previous 2 years. Emergency rooms across the Twin Cities reported surges in overdose admissions. Teenagers collapsed in school bathrooms. Parents found children dead in bedrooms. One batch of counterfeit Percocet pills distributed through the network contained concentrations 12 times higher than typical street doses. 17 people died in a single weekend, all in Hennepin County, ages 16 to 52. Medical examiners discovered the pills had been pressed in the same facility, same binding agents, same lethal miscalculation. The blood trail led back to Bashir and Amina, but proving it required patience, surveillance, coordination across multiple federal agencies. On December 14, 2025, the order came down. Assistant Director Monica Reyes, DEA Special Operations Division, authorized simultaneous raids across 19 locations in 5 states. Over 420 federal agents deployed. FBI tactical teams, DEA enforcement units, ICE Homeland Security investigations, ATF explosives specialists, U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Forces. The primary target was the Kenwood Fortress. At 4:17 a.m., the assault began. 3 armored Lenco Bearcats rolled silently through frozen streets. Overhead, a helicopter circled 2,000 feet. Thermal imaging tracked heat signatures inside the compound. Tactical operators moved through pre-dawn darkness. Breaching charges set on reinforced entry points. Sniper overwatch teams secured elevated positions from neighboring rooftops. The residence had been designed to resist intrusion. Reinforced steel doors, bulletproof windows, panic room in the basement with independent ventilation. But federal agents had been designed to overcome resistance. At 4:17:23 a.m., the breach commander gave the signal. Flashbangs detonated. Doors blew inward. Federal agents flooded the corridors, weapon lights cutting through smoke and darkness. Amina was found in the master bedroom, laptop open, hammer in hand, hard drive partially destroyed. Bashir was in the basement office, frantically deleting files from encrypted servers connected to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Both surrendered, hands up, silent. No resistance, but the property spoke volumes. If this shocks you, hit like now. The basement command center was a revelation. Rows of industrial shelving stacked floor to ceiling with vacuum-sealed packages. 1,847 kilograms of fentanyl powder, enough to kill every person in Minnesota twice. Adjacent storage rooms contained 4.2 million counterfeit prescription pills, packaged to mimic Percocet, Xanax, and Adderall. Labels printed with pharmaceutical precision. A hydraulic pill press sat in the corner, still warm from recent use. Chemical residue on the pressing plates. Financial records seized from the servers revealed $81.3 million laundered through 34 shell companies, registered in Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming. Names like Midwest Logistics Solutions and Northern Trade Partners. Wire transfer logs showed payments to cartel operatives in Mexico totaling $23.7 million over 27 months. Ledgers documented distribution payments to street dealers across the Midwest. Names, locations, quantities, dates. This wasn't a crime scene. This was headquarters. While the Kenwood raid unfolded, federal teams struck simultaneously across the metro area. 4:24 a.m. Bloomington Storage Facility, Unit 247. Agents breached the roll-up door. Inside, industrial drums labeled Industrial Cleaning Solution. 673 kilograms of fentanyl powder. 4:31 a.m. Downtown Minneapolis luxury condo tower. 3 apartments rented under proxy names. Packaging material, digital scales, $9.4 million in bundled cash stacked inside bedroom closets, organized by denomination. 4:38 a.m. St. Paul Warehouse, Industrial District. No signage, no activity during daylight. False walls concealed a complete fentanyl processing lab, cutting agents, binding compound, 6 pill presses, ventilation systems venting toxic fumes into exterior exhaust ducts. 4:47 a.m. Adina suburban home, registered to Bashir's brother-in-law. Inside the attached garage, buried beneath camping equipment, $14.2 million in cash, vacuum-sealed inside waterproof containers. By sunrise, 87 individuals were in federal custody across 5 states. Total fentanyl seized, 2,743 kilograms of powder and 4.2 million pressed pills. Enough to produce 1.37 billion lethal doses. Federal prosecutors calculated the street value at $687 million. But the human cost was incalculable. Share this so more communities understand how traffickers operate. The deeper agents dug, the darker the network became. Encrypted communications recovered from Bashir's servers revealed coordination with not just Sinaloa cartel operatives, but also Jalisco New Generation cartel distributors. The couple had positioned themselves as neutral brokers, willing to distribute product from any supplier, as long as profit margins remained high. Internal emails showed negotiations over bulk pricing. 2.5 per kilo if we take 500. Can you deliver by the 18th? Text messages revealed quality complaints from street dealers. Customers dying too fast. Need weaker batches or we lose repeat business. Voice recordings captured Amina coordinating delivery with chilling efficiency. Route the Phoenix shipment through Omaha. Split it into 3 vehicles. No single truck carries more than 200 kilos. She wasn't just complicit, she was operational command. Financial forensics uncovered $47 million transferred to offshore accounts. Cayman Islands, Cyprus, Dubai, real estate purchases in Nairobi, Istanbul, and London. Luxury vehicles registered under shell companies, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, 2 Range Rovers, a Porsche Cayenne. Investigators also discovered something unexpected. Bashir and Amina had been bribing local officials to avoid scrutiny. A Minneapolis city inspector received $38,000 deposited into a relative's account after approving building permits without inspections. A Hennepin County customs broker accepted consulting fees totaling $67,000 for expediting import clearances without documentation review. A state transportation official received a luxury vacation to Turkey in exchange for overlooking irregularities in commercial trucking logs. Corruption wasn't a side effect, it was strategy. Comment justice. If you believe every layer must be exposed. The investigation revealed that Bashir and Amina had exploited cultural trust within the Somali American community. They recruited couriers by offering legitimate employment in their import business, then gradually introduced them to higher-paying but illegal transportation work. Young men promised $5,000 to drive rental trucks across state lines. No questions asked, no explanations offered. Many didn't know they were transporting fentanyl until federal agents pulled them over. Community leaders interviewed after the raids expressed devastation. One elder told investigators, "We celebrated their success. We held them up as example. Now we realize we were celebrating murderers." Youth program directors revealed that Bashir and Amina had donated over $240,000 to community organizations over 6 years. Scholarships, after-school program, mosque renovations, blood money disguised as generosity. Federal prosecutors identified 19 individuals facing criminal charges for their roles in the trafficking network. Another 68 were charged with lesser offenses: money laundering, conspiracy, interstate transportation of illegal substances. Bashir Hassan Osman faces 73 federal counts: drug trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy to distribute fentanyl resulting in death, operating a continuing criminal enterprise, mandatory minimum, life imprisonment without parole. Amina Khalif Yusuf faces 67 federal counts, the same charges. If convicted, she could spend the rest of her life in federal custody. But the damage left behind cannot be undone. Over 1,800 Minnesotans died from fentanyl poisoning while this network operated. Thousands more suffered non-fatal overdoses. Emergency rooms overflowed, families buried children. Every pill pressed in that basement lab represented a potential death sentence. Every shipment sent across state lines carried destruction. And for nearly a decade, it all happened behind the facade of legitimate business, hidden by cultural respect, protected by bribes and silence. If you believe justice must be served, comment your reaction below. Federal officials described the operation as the most significant fentanyl trafficking bust in Minnesota history, but the scope extended far beyond state borders. DEA intelligence analysts determined that Bashir and Amina's network had supplied an estimated 60 to 70% of fentanyl circulating through the upper Midwest between 2023 and 2025. Overdose death rates in counties served by their distribution channels were 280% higher than areas not connected to the network. In Ohio, investigators linked 347 overdose deaths directly to pills traced back to batches seized in the Minneapolis raids. In Michigan, forensic toxicology confirmed that 218 fatal overdoses involved fentanyl with chemical signatures matching product recovered from the Kenwood Fortress. Across 14 states, at least 200 deaths were connected to the network, a conservative estimate. The real number is likely far higher. Federal prosecutors also revealed that Bashir had been planning expansion. Documents seized from his office outlined strategies for establishing distribution hubs in Atlanta, Charlotte, and Philadelphia. Projected revenue over 5 years, $1.2 billion. The goal wasn't just profit, it was empire. At the federal detention hearing, Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Caldwell addressed the court with quiet fury. These defendants didn't sell drugs. They manufactured mass death. They built an infrastructure designed to flood American communities with poison. And they did it from behind the shield of cultural respectability and philanthropic generosity. Bashir and Amina sat expressionless, no remorse, no emotion. The trial is scheduled to begin in federal court in March 2026. If convicted on all counts, both face mandatory life sentences with no possibility of parole. But the scars left across Minnesota and the Midwest will last generations. Hit subscribe so you don't miss updates when the trial begins. The Minneapolis case exposed a terrifying reality. Fentanyl trafficking networks are no longer limited to traditional cartel-controlled territory. They have infiltrated communities once considered safe. They exploit cultural trust. They hide behind legitimate businesses. They bribe officials. They weaponize generosity. And they operate with ruthless efficiency until someone finally looks closely enough to see the truth. Federal authorities estimate that similar networks are operating in at least 40 American cities, shielded by respectability, protected by silence, growing stronger every day. The Kenwood Fortress is empty now. The servers have been seized, the cash is frozen, the pills destroyed. But the question federal investigators continue asking remains unanswered. How many others are still out there? How many fortresses remain hidden behind iron gates and polished reputations? How many communities are celebrating leaders who are quietly destroying them? And how many warning signs are being ignored right now because questioning successful, generous, respected people feels uncomfortable? Because the systems we trust are only as strong as our willingness to challenge them, especially when the truth is painful, especially when the evidence points toward people we admire, and especially when looking away feels easier than confronting what's hidden in plain sight. The Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel continue producing fentanyl in unprecedented quantities. Chinese precursor chemical suppliers continue shipping materials to Mexican labs. Distributors continue establishing networks in American cities. And people continue dying every day in record numbers. The war isn't over. It's escalating. Bashir and Amina's network is dismantled. But the demand remains, the supply continues, and new traffickers are already filling the vacuum they left behind. Type never forget if you believe these victims deserve justice. In the weeks following the raids, federal investigators discovered additional evidence that deepened the horror. Hidden inside a climate-controlled storage unit in Maple Grove, agents found meticulous records dating back to 2017. Handwritten ledgers documenting every transaction, every courier, every distribution point. The records revealed that Bashir and Amina had started small, a few kilograms per month, testing routes, building relationships, establishing trust. By 2019, they were moving 50 kilograms monthly. By 2021, 200 kilograms. By 2024, 500 kilograms every month. The escalation was methodical, calculated, driven by profit margins that exceeded 800% after accounting for bribes, transportation, and distribution costs. Investigators also discovered photographs, not of operations, but of community events. Bashir and Amina smiling at ribbon-cutting ceremonies, standing beside city council members, accepting awards for community service. In one photograph, Bashir stands next to a Minnesota state senator at a fundraiser for immigrant youth programs. The date stamp shows October 2024, 3 months before the raids. While that photo was taken, his network was distributing 500 kilograms of fentanyl across the Midwest. The trial will last months. Evidence will fill courtrooms. Families will testify. Federal prosecutors will present financial record, intercepted communications, and forensic toxicology linking the couple's operation to thousands of deaths. Defense attorneys will argue entrapment, cultural targeting, evidentiary challenges, but the fentanyl speaks for itself. 2,743 kilograms, 4.2 million pills, $687 million in street value. The numbers don't lie, the bodies don't lie. And when the jury delivers its verdict, Bashir Hassan Osman and Amina Khalif Yusuf face the consequences of building an empire on corpses. Life in federal prison, no parole, no mercy. Just concrete walls, steel bars, and decades to reflect on the lives they destroyed for profit. Share this video before it's buried by algorithms. Federal officials revealed additional connections that extended the network's reach even further. In November 2025, 1 month before the raid, DEA agents in Phoenix arrested a logistics coordinator named Omar Hassan, no relation to Bashir, but critical to operations. Omar managed a trucking company that moved 90% of the fentanyl shipments from Phoenix to Minneapolis. 16 commercial trucks, all registered under legitimate freight hauling licenses. Each truck had hidden compartments welded into the chassis, accessible only by removing specific panels, large enough to hold 200 kilograms per shipment. Over 2 years, Omar's trucks transported an estimated 4,300 kilograms of fentanyl to Minneapolis, enough to produce 2.15 billion lethal doses. Omar's arrest led to Bashir's identification. His phone records led to Amina. Their servers led to the entire network. But here's what makes this case different from typical cartel busts. Bashir and Amina didn't start as criminals. They started as immigrants, refugees who fled Somalia in the early 2000s, arrived in Minnesota with nothing, built a legitimate import business through hard work and community support. At some point, they made a choice to prioritize profit over humanity, a choice to partner with cartels that produce industrial-scale death. And that choice killed over 2,100 people. If you made it this far, you understand the truth. Fentanyl isn't just a drug crisis, it's a war. And the enemy doesn't wear uniform. They wear business suits, they donate to charities, they smile at community events while planning your children's deaths. Hit like one final time so this reaches every parent, every community leader, every person who thinks their neighborhood is safe. The couple's defense attorneys have already filed motions challenging the legality of the surveillance that led to the raids. They argue that financial tracking violated privacy protections, that encrypted communications were obtained without proper warrants, that the entire investigation was motivated by cultural bias against Somali Americans. Federal prosecutors have countered with over 14,000 pages of evidence. Bank records, wire transfer, text messages, voice recording, photographs, ledgers, witness testimony from 73 individuals, and 2,743 kilograms of fentanyl that cannot be explained as anything other than what it is: poison, distributed for profit. The defense has also attempted to portray Bashir and Amina as victims, coerced by cartels, threatened into compliance, operating under duress. But investigators found no evidence of threats, no evidence of coercion. What they found was luxury real estate, offshore accounts, expansion plans, and communications showing excitement about projected revenue growth. This wasn't survival, this was ambition. In January 2026, federal prosecutors added additional charges: continuing criminal enterprise, conspiracy to commit murder through distribution of a deadly substance, money laundering with intent to promote specified unlawful activity. If convicted on all counts, Bashir and Amina face not just life imprisonment, but forfeiture of every asset they own, every property, every account, every vehicle. The government has already begun seizure proceedings: the Kenwood estate, the downtown office, the storage units, the vehicles, the offshore accounts. Total asset value, $127 million, all of it built on death. Comment "Stop the Poison" if you want law enforcement to see this. What makes this case particularly devastating is the betrayal of trust within the Somali American community. Community leaders who spoke after the arrests described feeling violated, not just by Bashir and Amina's crimes, but by the way those crimes will now be used to stereotype an entire community. One imam told federal investigators, "We are refugees who fled violence. We came here for safety, for opportunity. And now, these two have given ammunition to those who want to paint us all as criminals." Federal officials were careful to emphasize that this was not a community problem. This was a criminal enterprise operated by two individuals who exploited their standing within that community. But the damage is done. Suspicion has been planted, trust has been broken, and that's part of the tragedy. Bashir and Amina didn't just kill individuals with fentanyl, they damaged the reputation of an entire community that welcomed them, supported them, celebrated them. The betrayal cuts in every direction. Federal authorities also revealed that Bashir and Amina had been planning an exit strategy. Documents seized from their home included passport applications for multiple countries, property deeds in Dubai, bank account information for institutions in Cyprus and Malta. They were building an escape route, a way to vanish before federal investigators closed in. They almost succeeded. The raids came just 11 days before Bashir and Amina were scheduled to travel to Dubai on what they described as a business development trip. One-way ticket, no return date. If they had left, the investigation would have continued, but prosecution would have been nearly impossible. Extradition treaties are complex, enforcement across borders is difficult, and wealthy fugitives with offshore resources can disappear for decades. The timing of the December 14th raids wasn't coincidental. Federal investigators knew the clock was running out. Share this story with someone who needs to see it. The human impact of this network extends beyond statistics, beyond numbers, beyond even the 2,100+ confirmed deaths. In February 2025, a 19-year-old college student named Marcus Thompson purchased what he believed was Percocet from a dealer connected to Bashir's network. Marcus had injured his back playing basketball, couldn't afford a doctor visit, couldn't get a prescription, so he bought pills from someone he trusted. He took one pill, went to sleep, never woke up. His mother found him the next morning. Autopsy revealed fentanyl concentration 14 times higher than a lethal dose. Marcus was one of 2,100. One name, one life, one family destroyed. Federal prosecutors plan to present testimony from families like Marcus's during the trial, not to sensationalize, but to give faces to the numbers, to remind the jury that every kilogram of fentanyl represents thousands of potential deaths, and Bashir and Amina knew it. Their own communications acknowledge the lethality. In one intercepted text message from August 2024, Amina wrote to a distributor, "Tell your people to cut it more. Too many overdoses draw attention. Not too many deaths. Too much attention." That's the calculus. That's the mentality. Human life reduced to a risk management problem. And remember that vigilance isn't optional anymore. It's survival, because the next fortress is already being built. The next network is already operating. The next couple is already counting profits while families plan funerals. The fight continues. The war isn't over. And the only question that matters is this: will you stay silent or will you pay attention? The choice is yours. The consequences affect everyone. Federal officials have launched a nationwide initiative based on lessons learned from the Minneapolis case, Operation Fortress, a coordinated effort to identify and dismantle fentanyl distribution networks operating behind facades of legitimacy. The operation focuses on import-export businesses, cash-intensive enterprises, businesses with international supply chains, and minimal oversight. In the 3 weeks following the Minneapolis raids, Operation Fortress has identified 47 businesses nationwide with suspicious activity patterns matching those of newer global trade. Investigations are underway, surveillance has been established, and federal agents are building cases that could lead to dozens more raids in 2026. Because Bashir and Amina weren't unique, they were part of a larger pattern. A strategy employed by cartels to diversify distribution channels, hide in plain sight, blend into communities, use legitimate businesses as cover, exploit cultural trust, and operate until someone looks close enough to see the truth. Operation Fortress is designed to look that closely at every business, every transaction, every pattern that doesn't add up. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and never trust appearances when lives are at stake. This was Minneapolis. Next time, it could be your city. Hit like if you believe justice is worth fighting for. Comment below if you think more needs to be done to stop fentanyl trafficking. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when the trial begins in March 26. Because this story isn't finished. It's only the beginning, and the next fortress could be on your street. Behind gates you drive past every day, operated by people your community celebrates. The monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like success stories, until federal agents knock down the doors at 4:17 a.m. and the truth comes flooding out. This was betrayal wearing the mask of generosity. This was death disguised as business. This was a couple who understood that the best place to hide a poison empire was behind cultural respect and philanthropic giving. They almost succeeded. But investigators don't stop. Evidence doesn't lie. And eventually, every fortress falls. The question is how many people die before the walls come down. In Bashir and Amina's case, the answer is at least 2,100, and counting. Because even now, months after the raids, medical examiners across the Midwest continue identifying overdose victims who consumed pills traced back to their network. The poison they distributed is still killing, even from behind bars. That's the legacy of fentanyl trafficking. Death that outlives operations, destruction that continues long after arrests. The war isn't over, it's only just begun.